Today, we're going to be talking about multiplying the equation 6 times 16, a one-digit number and a two-digit number, using the area or array model. So when I'm thinking about area, I'm thinking about how many square units does it take to fill the inside part. So when we do rectangles, we're thinking about length times width as our formula to figure out how many squares are inside of my whole rectangle. So we're to do 6 times 16, we're going to break that apart. So you see here that I have 16 and I have 6 rows. But we're not going to use the numbers 6 and 16 because they're not necessarily friendly numbers that are easy for me to work with. So I'm going to break that 16 into two different pieces so that I have friendlier numbers to work with. So if I look at what I've got, it's already kind of divided up for me into two different groups. So I'm going to take this group, and this is 10. 10 is a very friendly number for me to work with, because anytime I multiply something by 10, I just multiply the non-zero digits and then add how many zeros I need. And then the other piece I'm going to multiply are all of these ones. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 going across the top. So the 10 and 6 make up the 16 that I'm starting with. So that's how I'm breaking up 16. We call that expanded form. And now we can multiply the two different pieces to help me get the product. So let's take the 10 times 6, which is going to equal 1 times 6 is 6, and 1 0 makes 60. And then over here I had the 1, 2, 3. My rows are not changing, remember, so I still have 6 rows. So I'm going to do 6 times 6 is equal to 36. So now I have two answers, but I am trying to find the area of the whole rectangle. So if I have the whole rectangle broken up into two pieces, all I have to do now is add those two pieces together to get my final product. So the sum of 60 and 36 is 96. So 6 times 16 is equal to 96. Okay, let's do another example with blocks before we move on to without blocks. So we're going to do 5 times 23. So I have 5 and 23. So 23 columns. So I'm going to have a rectangle of 23 and 5. But again, those are not easy numbers for me to work with. Okay, I like powers of 10 and simple facts because those are numbers that are easy to multiply without having to do a lot of work. So I'll keep the 5 because 5s are easy to work with and I know facts for 5. But let's break this 23 into separate two rectangles. So I could break it into 3 chunks, kind of like we see here, but I can shortcut. And I'm going to take all of my 10s and put them together. So I don't have 10, I have 1 to 10 here, and then 11 to 20 here. So we're going to label this as 20. Okay, and this is still 5 because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. Okay, then I'm going to find the other little rectangle that's left. Again, I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, and I have 1, 2, 3 columns. So again, this is the expanded form of 23. So now I can multiply my two rectangles together and I'll add them to get the whole product. So I'm going to do 20 times 5. So I'm going to do 20 times 5. Now, I don't know 20 times 5, but I know 2 times 5 is 10. That's an easy fact for me. So 2 times 5 is my 10. but I can't forget about that 0. So a 0 in the equation makes a 0 then in my answer. Then I'm going to do my second rectangle, the smaller one, and that's 3 times 5, which is equal to 15. So now I have two partial areas. So the area of this part of the rectangle is 100, and the area of this part of the rectangle is 15. So I'm going to add them together to get my total product, which is going to be 115. So doing the area model is all well and good because I have the nice blocks to help me visualize what is happening there. But I'm not always going to have those nice base 10 blocks to be able to put down and count. So if we don't have the blocks, which we normally will not, we're going to do the same steps, we're just going to do it without. So we're going to go ahead and pretend that we have blocks. So we're going to draw a rectangle to represent our area, the length times the width, okay, to see what would be the amount inside. So we're going to do the same thing. The last time we took 16 and we broke it into the 10 and the 6. But this time I'm going to have 34. So that wouldn't just be 10. I'm going to have 3 10s. So I'm going to put that 34 in expanded form, which is 30 plus 4. Anywhere I see a plus sign, I'm going to draw a line. And to get in good habits for when we do 2 by 2 multiplication and 3 by 2 multiplication, whatever is on the top is also on the bottom. So then the only number we haven't used yet is the 5, so that's the number of rows going across. And now we're going to multiply the length and the width of our two separate rectangles. So we have the small rectangle and the big rectangle. So we start with the 5 times 30 or 30 times 5. So we're going to multiply 5 times 3, which is equal to 15. And there's 1 0 in the equation, so there's going to be 1 0 in the product. Now we're going to do the 4 times 5, which we're going to write in there, 4 times 5, which is equal to 20. But we want the area of the whole rectangle. Right now I only have this piece and this piece, and I want the whole thing. So in order to figure out the whole thing, I'm going to add my two numbers together to figure out the whole inside. So 150 plus 20 is going to be 170. So 34 times 5 is equal to 170.